First of all, I have to apologize. I have to say, speak in English because every time I speak in 普通话, I will have a very traumatic experience. I will be very unhappy for more than 1 week. The last time I spoke in Beijing, I only spoke for 20 minutes, but I was unhappy for 1 week. And but before I start, I just want to ask a very simple question. How many of you cannot understand any tiny Cantonese? 有没有朋友一点点的广东话也听不懂的，请举手。听不懂 OK. I will use 1 or 2 examples using Cantonese, but that will be okay. But just you may listen. You can read the words here, but it will be okay. So so romantic. Okay. Can I have some light? Okay, I speak here. Okay, thank you. Today I'm going to talk about coping and self-esteem of early adolescents with dyslexia. Only 2 effects. 1 very bright. Yeah. Okay, that will be fine. Thank you. So, I'll use Cantonese for a while. 如果有細路仔讀唔到書嘅話，基本上做唔到功課，讀唔到書，屋企人第一樣嘢會話呢個細路仔係咩呢？懶惰 lazy。如果唔係懶嘅話，屋企人會話呢個細路仔有蠢啦、曳啦，有啲家長搞到鈍啦、before the term of SLD appears in the world, when a student cannot study well, we try to give an explanation to that child that he or she is lazy, or he or she is stupid, or even there are so many other factors, including some sensory disability, emotional problem, environmental problem, intelligence issue. And finally, we have a term called specific learning difficulties. Just like May, I will give a very brief introduction of 5 types of SLD, because dyslexia is only one type among the 5 types of specific learning difficulties. We have dyslexia, specific language impairment, DCD, developmental coordination disorder, mathematics language disability, and spatial perceptual disorder. Actually, students can have either 1 or more type of SLD. And in Hong Kong, more or less, the ratio is something like that. Among all the studying population in Hong Kong, around 10% of the studying population, they have 5 types of SLD. And among all those students with SLD, 80% of them are dyslexic. So we have a very complicated mathematics. So if we have 100 students, how many of them will be dyslexic? 8. 10% of them have these 5 types of disability, and among them, 80% are dyslexic. So, we have some definition. I'm also sensory overload. SLD actually, it is an inborn defect. It is not because of your laziness or any issue. It is inborn. It is not owing to laziness, and no drugs can cure SLD so far. The condition does not improve when getting older. And when we talk about effective intervention to dyslexic students, mainly there are 2 types of intervention. First, it is about training, and second, it is about school-based accommodation. For example, you have more time for your examination, your exam paper is bigger, or you have different kinds of assessment. So, we will look at some definition. It is the most common type of SLD. It affects a person's word reading and word recognition abilities. a very basic criteria is that they must have normal or more than normal IQ. But they have problems in identifying words, including listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And actually, for me, I will include the fifth dimension. It is organization. That is, students have problems in listening, speaking, reading, writing, and organization things. And they have serious problems during dictation and writing. It is the definition of the Department of Health. So this is something that we have come across before. Some common writing mistakes, 清潔等於清白啦. Actually, it is for, how many of you are churchgoers on Sundays? Can you raise up your hand? Churchgoer. It is just like you're singing a hymn. There's a word, 歡欣, and then you may sing 歡唱. That is me, okay? Every time I have some problems in identifying very similar words. And actually, dyslexic students, they have some problems in identifying very similar words. For example, 警察, 差人, 秩序規則, 童話, 兒說, whatever. And these are some examples. This is a P1 dictation. I don't want to go further about this dictation, but you can have a sense if you are really that student, and if you really got 0 mark for your studying, you will be extremely unhappy. Everything is close, okay? But I find that this dictation is actually, for me, is quite difficult. And we talk about dyslexic, it is about the mother tongue, but we find that many dyslexic students in Chinese, they also have problems in English as well. So this is a very typical example of English dictation. All the words, for example, the jacket, they become jacketch, and the basket, it is a basket. It is what we call the error analysis. You will find that they are very active in studying and doing their own work, but they find that the experience is very unhappy and full of failures. And this is a P1 Chinese composition. For me, I find that this is confusing to me. In Chinese, 公園裏有花兒和同學. This 學 is wrong, so a tick and this. I just can't understand what is the meaning of this thing. And then, 公園裏有老師, but this is correct, okay? But the most interesting thing for me is that 公園裏有小王子. The teacher finds that this is wrong. It must be 小孩子. So dyslexic students, they are very frustrated. They want to address all the studying issues. But however, the experience is very frustrated to them. And then I will use 2 minutes to read this passage to you. It is a senior form dyslexic student's composition. Before I go on, you will find that this student, he takes very active effort in doing this Chinese composition. So I will talk in Cantonese, but you can have a sense of what's going on here. 我熟悉的朋友人有很多，今天我要介紹，他是子傑，是我很好的好朋友，人人叫他是高 B， 有些人叫他低 B， 我叫他做高 B。我還有一個很好的朋友，他叫家峰，我們3個常常換捉迷藏。高 B 跑得很慢，家峰跑得很快。我跑得中快。高 B 喜歡吃芒果，家峰很喜歡吃怡寶。You know 怡寶 you know 怡寶 怡寶 is candy. It is very common when I was a child, okay? Orange flavor candy. Well, okay. 我很喜歡吃朱古力。高 B 大個想做海洋科學，家峰大個肯做地鐵。我大個想做麵包師傅，我和家峰常常串高 B， 高 B 說反彈沒回頭。高 B 常常請我們吃零食，我們一起洗澡時都會換水戰。我希望他們2個下年陪我玩耍。Let's have a whole of applause to this composition, okay? I find that this is amazing. But unfortunately, this student failed in this composition, and he has to redo his homework again. So you find that the students are very frustrated and they suffer a lot in school because it is a study-related issue. we try to focus on teaching and learning. For example, we use the multisensory learning, we use direct and clear teaching, we use different methods of revision, we adopt the pair reading, we use organization and grouping materials and school-based accommodation. We, for I think more than 10 years, all the materials and the intervention, they are focusing on the teaching and learning. And it is good because it is a learning-related issue. However, what I'm going to propose is that when an early adolescent does not study well, his self-esteem and stress coping mechanisms are seriously affected. In addition to working with academic issues, we should also focus on the psychosocial aspects of adolescents with dyslexia. So before I go on, I just want to know how many of you are teachers here? Please raise your teachers. How many of you are social workers here? Psychologists? Okay, so when we look at this map, we have an assumption that when a student has problems in learning, we do the intervention, and then that intervention can affect the students as well, so that the psychosocial aspects can be improved. But actually, what I'm going to propose is that the psychosocial aspects, we can intervene this as well. And then these two can be linked together. But in so far, for more than 10 years of services all over the world, not more than 10 years, we only focus on the learning and this part. And we have an assumption that when we do this part perfect, everything will be all right. Well, it is a correct assumption, but I want to propose that we can move further to the psychosocial aspects of the adolescents with dyslexia. Actually, literature on the psychosocial aspects of adolescents with dyslexia, something like that, they are very dissatisfied with their lives. Their self-esteem and self-concept were lower. They are more depressive. They are anxious. They have suicidal thoughts. They feel loneliness. They have fewer friends. They are being bullied. They are pessimistic. They don't seek sufficient information. And they adopt a cognitive avoidance to their coping. And in so far, there are no studies in Chinese communities. So I want to do something to explore the psychosocial needs of the dyslexic students in Hong Kong. Against this background, I'm conducting a research about adolescents with dyslexia and without dyslexia. They are on 6 areas. Do they understand dyslexia? What about their self-esteem, their coping styles, their social support, their perceived academic result, and the perceived conduct? The self-esteem is something subjective judgment of me. And the coping, for the coping, I'm very stressful, and then I appraise this stress and I try to cope with the situations. According to Fortman, there are 8 types of coping styles, including confrontive coping, 對抗, social support, 支持, problem solving, 排難, accepting responsibilities. And on the other hand, there are emotion focus, including distancing, 抽離, self-control, 自制, escape avoidance, 逃避, and positive reappraisal, 正面評價. I am very interested on adolescents with dyslexia, how they cope with their life and how they cope with their stress. So my research questions are very simple. Are there any differences between these 2 groups of adolescents? And what are the contributing factors for self-esteem? And my participants, actually, they are, this is a very small-scale research. I have 16 early adolescents. They are all P5 and P6 with dyslexia, and 19 without dyslexia, and all study at Society of Boys Centers, Judyan Center School, and they fill in the questionnaire in November and October-November 2012. And some acknowledgement, thank you to my school, and for SPC, I have to give my acknowledgement to Mr. Tony Leung, Ms. Low, and Ms. Jan. They are very helpful for their research, and we have I have a research assistant from Hong Kong, U. Thomas. Actually, he's here. Okay, he is very hardworking. Thank you, Thomas. So we go to some figures, but they will be okay. I want to understand whether they understand. I want to know whether they understand dyslexia. So the findings, only one is statistically significant, but they will be okay. But I want to talk about something very interesting. First, for adolescents without dyslexia, they think that dyslexia is inborn. But for adolescents with dyslexia, their weighting is lower. And they think that adolescents without dyslexia, actually they understand dyslexia more than adolescents with dyslexia. Forget what I'm talking about in English, I talk in Cantonese. 有讀障嘅細路仔，冇讀障嘅細路仔，明白咩叫讀障多過有讀障嘅細路仔。Okay? The parents understand dyslexia. For adolescents with dyslexia, they find that their parents really understand this more. This is statistically significant. And this three, I would be unhappy if I have dyslexia. I will not tell other people. And there is prejudice against dyslexia. And for adolescents without dyslexia, they agree these statements more. But for adolescents with dyslexia, they do not they agree this statement less. In Cantonese, 有讀障冇讀障嘅細路仔覺得自己如果有讀障會唔開心，但係如果有讀障嘅細路仔呢，佢有讀障佢冇咁唔開心。佢如果一個冇讀障細路仔發現自己有讀障，佢唔會話俾人聽。但係一個有讀障嘅細路仔，如果發現自己有讀障嘅話，佢唔係好介意話俾人聽。跟住有讀障嘅細路仔覺得個社會係有冇讀障細路仔覺得個社會係排擠嘅。但係有讀障嘅細路仔覺得個社會唔係咁排擠嘅，有讀障嘅細路仔覺得社會資源都唔錯，覺得自己同其他人冇分別嘅就係咁，就係都高啲嘅。In a sense, this picture, although there is only one statistically significant figure, but I want to demystify a fact. Dyslexic adolescents, by and large, they seem to be quite comfortable about their status. They use many coping mechanisms to deal with their condition. But for students without dyslexia, they give a very general portrayal. And another very interesting figure, adolescents without dyslexia, they found that their academic result is better. But adolescents with dyslexia, their conduct seems to be higher. That means dyslexic students, they have better conduct. Adolescents without dyslexia, they have poorer conduct. And another factor is quite interesting, and actually it's quite amazed me. Adolescents with dyslexia, their self-esteem is higher than adolescents without dyslexia. But I have to tell to you, all these figures are not statistically significant. This is only a descriptive profile. But adolescents without dyslexia, their social support is higher. So we have a very interesting finding. Adolescents with dyslexia, academically poor, but more well-behaved at school, self-esteem higher, but their self-support, their social support is lower. And for the tendency of coping styles, we find that adolescents with dyslexia, they use more confrontive, 對抗, distancing, 抽離, so self-control. For adolescents without dyslexia, they use more support, avoidance, active problem solving, and positive appraisal. But for adolescents with dyslexia, they try to accept responsibility. Actually, this item, it means fatalistic, young man. They use confrontive distancing and self-control, and they accept the responsibility more. And actually, we will see later, self-esteem actually is highly related to self-control. That's why self-esteem of dyslexic students, they are higher, because their sense of self-control is higher. So we do some correlations. I'm glad that now all the figures are statistically significant. So what about the correlations with self-esteem? we find that studying perceived academic result is correlated to self-esteem, and conduct and social support and coping are all related to self-esteem. And among all the coping, what are the factors conducive to self-esteem? Self-control, problem solving, and positive appraisal. So we have a finding that if we want to do better youth work, whether they are SLD or not, we have to focus on more self-control and problem solving and positive appraisal. And I do some statistical thing, forget that what I'm going to do and what I have done. We find that when we control SLD, the status, what are the two factors conducive to self-esteem for adolescents studying in Jian Center School with or without dyslexic? It is a very interesting fact that no matter how we tell other people that studying is okay, but if you do not study well, you can explore your talent, other multiple intelligence. But in reality, in Chinese communities, we go back to academic. That means you have to, if you want to work with adolescents with dyslexic, we have to make them happy and make them feel successful about their learning. And the second one, it is coping. We have to ask them, teach them more coping skills. So, discussion. Dyslexic adolescents, they do not understand their condition, and they tend to underestimate the impact, or we adults overestimate the impact. I really don't know. Maybe we really overestimate the impact of dyslexic to these young people. And they are more accepting to themselves, and they are very positive about services. That's why when the parents, they seek for many services, there is a very huge discrepancy between the parents and children. The children find that this is okay, but for the parents, they find that it is not okay. And conduct seems to be better. Dyslexic children, they are well behaved, but their academic results seem to be poorer, and their self-esteem seems to be higher. Because there are two factors conducive to self-esteem, this is self-control and conduct. And these two factors, for dyslexic students, they are higher. And social support, I want to say that, although it is statistically not significant, but social support for dyslexic students, actually they are poorer. This is very consistent to other research. So there are two big findings. First, we have to develop their social support. Second, we have to develop their coping styles. They use too much confrontive and self-control, distancing, and accepting responsibility. So for practice, I want to advocate something. First, the social support for them. Actually, for early adolescents, one of the very important cue for them is a very positive adults around them. And proactive coping, it is necessary. And it is a very frank but honest fact that social support, conduct, studying, and coping, they're all related to self-esteem. The strongest effect are studying and coping styles. So in addition to teaching and learning strategies, problem solving and stress management skills, they are needed. Well, I want to propose a very this is actually my vision of my work. I only start doing this research for a few years, but this is really my vision to working in dyslexia. Nowadays, I find that there are actually three sectors working towards the needs of dyslexic adolescents. The psychology sector, we have the teacher, the education sector, we have the social worker, the social welfare sectors. Can we work together for the benefit of the children, of the adolescents? This is what I want to propose. And I really appreciate the practice of SPC because I know that the social workers, the educational psychologists, and the teachers, they can work together. But it is a very exceptional case in the world, or not in the world, in Hong Kong at least. So what I'm going to propose is that, can we have an intervention network in not only focusing on teaching and learning, but also including the psychosocial aspects. In this way, we can have a more comprehensive intervention. The limitations, these are only descriptive differences. These are not statistically different, but the correlations are significant. The sample size is not large enough. If you are really interested to join this research, you can drop an email to me. My email is very simple, below. My name is Ben, below@hku.hk. I'm working in that university. So this is my vision towards working towards the needs of dyslexic adolescents or children, regardless of professionals. I really want that we work together towards the holistic needs of adolescents with dyslexia. So finally, thank you.
时间过得很快，再一次谢谢罗博士，他刚才跟我们分享他在扶幼会所做的研究报告。接下来是我们休息的时间，我们现在看，时钟就是3:08，我们大概到3:25就回来，再继续我们的研讨会。在外面我们有一些清水预备给大家，可以自由去享用了啊。